Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the Resilience Reef. This is a show where we share strategies and we share stories to basically help people with chronic health conditions to build their resilience. It's a roller coaster ride of a journey when you're diagnosed with a chronic health condition. We know we're in it for the long haul, and there are various stages, various ups and downs that we have to deal with along route. So building resilience is a pretty good thing to do, and I hope people to do that. My next guest is Eleanor MacDonald, over in Canada, the beautiful part of the world. Hi, Eleanor, how are you?
Hi, Karen. I'm doing really well, and thank you for having me here today.
It's a pleasure. It's great to meet you. It's lovely to have that accent on the show. It really is. So Eleanor was diagnosed with Irritable Bowel Syndrome, IBS, over 25 years ago, actually. And probably a lot more is known about it these days than back then. So we'll talk a little bit about the experience that Eleanor had back in those days, where she was having a lot of physical and psychological things going on. Not perhaps knowing a lot about it back then, but certainly feeling it and brave enough to go and get some help for it, which is the right thing to do. And then being diagnosed with it, and then, well, what do I do with this? How do I manage it? Because a lot of chronic health stuff these days, and especially back then, was about self-management. They can help you so far, the professionals, but then you're on your own with it, and you've got to figure out a way to deal with it. So we're going to talk today with Eleanor about how her journey went, what kind of things she had to deal with, and the kind of resilience she had to build, and in what ways she built that in order to be able to live the dream she lives today in helping other people. Because the great thing is, us with chronic health conditions, is that we build some amazing skills. We go and search on our journey of discoveries, and we find some awesome skills, and then we feel we want to help other people to do that. So we're going to be talking about that today. So your journey started over 25 years ago, Eleanor. Tell us a bit about some of the things that you were experiencing back then, like what kind of things you were going through in order to need to get help.
Yeah, so I was, I love how you frame this, because this is all about resilience. It's who you become. It's really your own, I would consider your own personal development journey. And there's a lot of really rich wisdom in our suffering, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
It's not a fun thing by any means, but it is a very beautiful and deep journey that we're on. So I've always been a sensitive child. When I was growing up, I was very sensitive to, my stomach was always sort of a little bit, I might have not noticed it so much when I was a child, but then when I became a teenager, I started to notice that I was always sort of feeling a little bit off when I eat food, and not, or like feeling overly full or just bloated, and just thinking that it was just like the food, or oh, it's because I ate this, or because I ate that, or it was just constantly always blaming the thing that I was eating. And then I noticed over time it was just getting worse and worse, and so I started developing symptoms of of pain, severe pain, and just like a lot of stomach cramping and diarrhea and all the nasty things we don't like to talk about. And this is the thing about IBS, is it's such a personal and embarrassing thing that people don't really want to talk about what they're experiencing. And so I completely understand that anyone who's going through this right now, it's just not something you want to bring up, even with a doctor. It can be really embarrassing. And often we start thinking, oh, there's, something very wrong with me, and I don't know, like I'm doing something wrong, like I'm eating the wrong foods, or I'm not chewing enough, or I'm, it's like we get into this whole thing where we're blaming ourselves. And so I went through a lot of that over the years. I was like, oh, I'm not eating healthy enough, or etc. And it got worse and worse. And I remember the turning point of the worst time was when I came back from Mexico, and I still to this day don't know if there's a direct connection between this, but I came back from Mexico, and I had just my symptoms were through the roof, where I was just like constantly running to the bathroom. And I remember just being out with someone, a friend, and we were going to go see an apartment or something. And I had to like find a bathroom and like running down the street and being like, oh my God, I'm just like collapsing here. My body is just going crazy. And that was the turning point where I was like, okay, I have to deal with this. I have to see someone about this because it's not normal. This is my trying to like deal with it on my own is just unbearable. And so I went to the doctor. My doctor was very old school. And at the time, like you said, nobody really knew about this. And there was a sort of a, I don't know how you say this, kind of a blame the person type of thing. Like, oh, you're just a sensitive person, or you're just an emotional type of person. And I dare say it was even like towards females, like, oh, you just get, upset about things, or you're sensitive with your feelings and it affects your stomach and things like this. So it's like, it was a very kind of condescending type of feeling. And so, and the doctor didn't really know much about it. So I had a series of 3 years of tests, actually. And it was, the tests themselves are incredibly embarrassing. And I mean, I'm not saying this to dissuade anybody from getting tests, but it is very invasive. It's invasive. And so you have to have you kind of like steel yourself against it and say, I'm just going to go and do this and just embarrass myself a little bit.
You've got to do it. It's the best thing.
You've got to do it. And so at the time, this was when they didn't have the proper testing, and the testing really was about eliminating things like it's not Crohn's, it's not colitis, it's not this, it's not that. And so it took 3 years to get through the whole long list of what it's not to say this is what it is. And so it's basically it's now referred to as the non-diagnosis diagnosis. So they say if you like this long list, you don't have any of these things, therefore you have IBS. And I remember the doctor kind of specifically after 3 years of just feeling hopeless about ever finding out what was wrong, and feeling like I was going crazy and not being able to really live a normal life at all, and being in a lot of pain, just where I would be in tears and pain. And having the doctor just pat me on the shoulder and say, don't worry, when you get older, you're going to settle down and you're going to be more relaxed about your life and it's going to go away. I just remember being devastated by that, the kind of attitude back then. Thankfully, it's not like that now. They know so many things now.
Yeah.
But that was my experience. And it just made me want to go really within myself and just sort of hide away. And so I went through a period of probably I'd say depression about it, and thinking, I don't know how I'm going to make this go away. He basically was saying, just wait it out, which anyone who has this can say, you can't wait it out. This is just impossible. It's
put your life on hold for a few 20 years and see what happens.
Exactly. So you'll get older and you'll be fine. So there was a lot of devastation around that sort of, not knowing what I was going to do. And so it set me on my journey that I would say is like finding myself. And I'm going to talk about specific strategies, but it set me on my path of really discovering who I am and my place in the world. And it sounds very philosophical, but it all was directly related in the end to what I was going through. And I learned a lot about physical symptoms being connected to emotional, states and the brain and all these connections. And so how we are in the world and who we are, and honoring that has a lot to do with how I started my healing journey. So
Yeah, because if you think back, with anything, you want some kind of solution, you want some resolution to it, don't you? You go to see a professional or a series of professionals over 3 years to eliminate what isn't, so that you can
Yes.
figure out what is. And then not a lot of things are known about what is, and they just can kind of give you a woolly idea about, oh, it'll get better at some point in your life if you just don't worry about it.
Yeah, just don't worry so much about it.
That creates a lot of anxiety in people. It creates a lot of, well, what is my future going to feel like? What do I do to manage these symptoms? I'm in incredible pain. Like, how do I deal with this?
Yes.
And often you'll get kind of things that you can manage the physical symptoms with, but it still doesn't help the psychology. The psychology is often hidden, isn't it? It's kind of forgotten when people are just dealing with the medical model, the medical condition.
Yeah.
But you must have been experiencing certainly a lot of anxiety back then in terms of how you deal with this. And, you know, that courage that you got from somewhere that got you on the road to, well, I am not just going to put up with this. I've got to do something with it. I've got to do something about it. And searching for some tools and strategies which we'll move into it to help you to find your own way through it. Even though there's no textbook way of doing that, you're going to figure out, well, what can I do about it in my world, with my skills, with my background? What can I do? So what was kind of some of the first strategies that you learned to do to kind of find yourself and to understand that connection between your mind and your body?
So the first thing I did, I was, as my personality, I didn't like to accept no for an answer. So that's, I would also say,
That's a good start.
one of the things about resilience is that you actually don't accept what's being given to you and sort of go away and just, roll over and take it. So the first thing I knew was that there's no way I was going to accept what I had been told about that, and that I had to find a way. So there was this motivation and questioning and not wanting to accept that. So that was the first kind of theme that I was in. And then I started to do research. So I got curious. And so back then there wasn't a lot of information available, but I wanted to go outside of the medical system and see what other people were saying and what the outliers were doing and everything. And so I started to research. And since my family was very open-minded about alternative things, and they were hippies and everything, and so I already had that, connection to what is outside of the mainstream. And so I started to look into like a naturopath, and I went to go see a naturopath, and she gave me some supplements. And even back then it was very, it wasn't common at all to talk about probiotics. Nobody really even knew what they were, which is the good bacteria for your gut, which is almost essential for anyone with IBS, is to find the right kind of good bacteria for your gut. And so I got the basics of, maybe what I was eating also. Even though I said, I'm not going to blame every food, I'm still going to see if there are certain foods that are triggering me, which is different for everybody. So I started getting tests that were not the normal, like, scratch tests back then. We're just like seeing what you're allergic to. These were more in-depth tests that were like what your foods you are sensitive to. And so I would even say today that I wouldn't prescribe to, like, this food group is the one thing that's going to make or break your condition.
So that was that through experimentation, Eleanor? Did you find you were just experimenting with various things to see, and eliminating various things to see what would make it worse, what would not make it worse?
Yeah, it was trial and error, as well as elimination diet, the basic things they did back then, and then some testing. And then I started experimenting, and then I actually became so engrossed. And the funny thing was, I was already really fascinated with nutrition and health, even before I started having those symptoms. And so it just really propelled me into that whole field. And so I actually became a holistic nutritionist on my own health journey to heal myself. idea behind going to school was just to help
Yeah.
heal myself. And I'm not saying you have to like all of a sudden go and become a professional to
No,
help
it's quite an
yourself.
investment. It's a big
It is,
investment in yourself that you committed to, which is awesome.
yeah. And it's because I was passionate about it anyway,
Yeah,
and I was passionate
yeah,
about helping my body and mind be the best it could be. So
yeah.
I actually, yeah, I became a nutritionist, and I started to apply all those things to myself. And so I'd say the main things were I started getting different opinions from people who were in the field, like
Yeah.
food, nutrition, naturopaths, and then started experimenting and being open to trial and error and being present with myself. And then I found that only got me to a certain point. Even after becoming a nutritionist, it only got me to a certain point. And then I had to go on a different level, like what is, like you said, the emotions behind it? What is the psychology? And
Mm,
like you said, I developed like extreme anxiety. I was having panic attacks, and all these things were probably, already a tendency. But then my
mm,
symptoms and my situation just brought it into full force of panic attacks and
mm.
everything.
Wow.
So I had to see what is this? What is going on with this? Because my body was like I couldn't do anything more with the
Mm,
physical side of things. There was
mm,
nothing left
mm.
to do with the food, with the eating. I was so disciplined. I'm a very disciplined person, and I was just going to the extreme. And so something was missing. There were
So
several
it
things
took you
that were
so
missing.
far, but you do, yeah, there was something more to do.
Yeah, it wasn't like the holistic picture. And
Mm,
that's really what my journey is about, is like the holistic side of things. So what was going on emotionally before I started to develop the symptoms? What wounds needed to be healed within me? What was some of the, forgiveness that I needed to let go of in my family or
mm,
forgive people?
okay.
And so I really dove into that. And I also have a background in child and youth care counseling. So I was also learning a lot about the counseling side of things and
Mm,
psychology, how our
mm.
emotions affect our body. And so
Yeah,
that headed into a very deep personal journey. And I found a lot of relief from doing my emotional healing. So
great.
different things like forgiveness practice, tapping, if anyone's heard of emotional freedom technique. That's where you're hitting certain meridian points and actually releasing the emotional energy from the body. That had a
Mm,
huge positive effect on me. Just clearing up my body and emotional like charge that I had.
yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the mental level, I also had to look at my thoughts and, the mindset of my insecurities in life. So when I talk about this is my personal journey, it was like all my insecurities from growing up um, in
Yeah.
a volatile household, and all of the thoughts that went along with it and the uncertainty all came up. And I was like, okay, a lot of these thoughts are actually really triggering my body, and getting into all of that type of healing on
Mm,
a mind level. So I had mentors, I had supporters along the way. I had energy workers. So I also went into energy healing, and that was another huge journey for me. I became a Reiki teacher in 2010,
wow.
which is a Japanese energy
Great.
technique. um, so when I say I've done all the things on all the levels, I mean, pretty much almost
You
everything I
seriously
did.
have, yeah.
um,
But it's good. It is great. You know what,
mhm.
Eleanor? It is fantastic that you've been able to holistically just challenge things and look into things and get insight into
Yeah.
what might be each stage. Yep, I'm good. I'm okay, but it's not good enough. I want something more. I want something more, and that is resilience. That's that need and that sensibility to go find. How can I build more resilience? How can I get even better? And that's awesome that you had that within you to do that.
And it's also the fact that I enjoyed it. So that's one thing that listeners might see is like, instead of being very fearful of what's happening to you or very fearful of your symptoms, think of it as an invitation to really know yourself on the deepest level and to be on this beautiful journey that is, I understand it's not a walk in the park, but it's like, it's still part of the, I don't know, what we're kind of here to do, I think, in some way, not to suffer, but to learn about ourselves, to really find that strength, our inner confidence. And this is also not about being like wrong or being damaged or being, like there's something wrong with you. This is about learning more about yourself so you can support who you are and you can have healthy relationships and have a enjoyable career and all these things and support yourself in the capacity that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about being the best we can be. We're here for quite a long time, most of us. And if you have a chronic condition like we do, it's typically not going to go away anytime soon. It's with us for a long, long time. And so it's good to be the best person that we can be during that time and learn as much as we can, which is what you did. You clued yourself up, you empowered yourself with a lot of different kinds of knowledge and skills, which is the best thing to do when you've got chronic illness, and not a lot of people will help you along route.
Yeah.
Now, today is Valentine's Day.
Yes.
So it's a big, well, not a big day for everyone, but it is for you because you struggled along route. I think you briefly touched on it in the beginning about relationships and how you had a lot of insecurities and difficulties, but and the fact that IBS is one of those things that you don't want to necessarily tell people. You don't want to share it with people because of what the reaction is around it. So much less so these days. People are definitely willing to talk about it these days, and but still, there's a sense of you carefully share it with, aren't you? But you tell us about how you managed to find a great support in your relationship, how that happened.
Yeah, so on my journey to really discover who I am and to be okay with who I am was really what it came down to. So I started off being someone who I thought I had to be perfect and had to hide everything and had to like really push it all under the surface. And that was the real psychology behind a lot of my the pain and the pressure and the anxiety was around trying to push down who I really was, trying to hide what I was going through, trying to have this perfect facade, be the people pleasing type of front. And so as I started to dismantle that and just show up as I am and say, I really want a relationship, even if I have IBS, even if I have problems, even if I have to watch what I eat, even if I have to do this or that, I still deserve love. And I can find somebody who is going to support me and love me for exactly who I am. And the more I was able to accept myself and become comfortable with who I am, the more easily I was able to put myself out there and to, do the traditional dating and coming with a new mindset of who I was, who I am is amazing. And I have so many things to offer.
Good for you.
And I put that out there. And then I met my now husband, who is like, supports me in everything I do. And he just is like an amazing support system. And we have so much fun together too, even despite whatever challenges I might have, or, whatever you want to call it, handicaps, or, the capacities that I have where I have to watch certain situations or foods or whatever. It's fine. It's fine with
that's
him.
great, and that's important message for people that think they are unlovable. The first thing you got to do is learn to love yourself, learn to understand and accept yourself for someone who deserves to find something in their life which makes them happy.
Exactly, and it's like let somebody in I had to go through a process. It wasn't easy. I had a lot of difficulty trusting other people and opening up
Mm.
and being really
Mm.
honest and authentic with myself and who I am.
Yeah.
And the more I was able to just creak open the doors of the heart and say, I'm going to
Good.
trust, just it's just small steps, just taking small
Yeah.
steps and saying, I'm gonna give this a try and show up as I am. And it's like, the come as you are party, of life. And just start
Good
showing
stuff.
up and see who, let the universe surprise you with who's gonna show up
Yeah.
and say, hey, I really like you. And
Yeah, but to do
all of
that
you.
like you do, like you say, you've got to put yourself out there to have those opportunities, and to be able to be okay with rejection, with
Mhm.
people not liking who you are, not wanting to talk about or accept you who you are. That's fine. They're not your
Exactly.
people. They're not the people
Exactly.
that you gravitate towards. But in
Exactly.
order to do that, you've got to have the bravery and the confidence to be able to say, do you know what? Here I am. Take it or leave it. This is how things are.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you found that in a partner who accepted you for who you are and what's going on, which is and a chronic condition can be incredibly disruptive to daily functioning, daily
Yeah.
life.
Mhm.
And whoever you're with has got to be on board with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say that, compared to the way I was before with I had to stabilize myself. So I really had to get stable in terms of my symptoms. And so that was a lot
Yeah.
of the groundwork that I first talked about. So I did come to the point where I was able to manage and, go about my daily life without pain. And it's very few and far between where I have the kind of pain I did back then. And I don't have those instances where I'm just completely immobilized. So that I've been able to stabilize with all the things I was talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then once I was feeling good and not perfect, but good and feeling good about myself, then I started to put myself out there. So I wouldn't suggest, doing it too soon or like just taking the leap and not really being ready to put yourself out there. You have to
Yeah.
have a certain level of feeling good about and confident about your health at the best level it can be first, and then moving. So I don't believe in pushing yourself. I don't. I used to do that too, where I wasn't listening to my body. That was another
Yeah.
disconnect. It was like
Mm.
I want to force my body to be okay with this situation because I really want to do XYZ and I want to go here. And I would push myself way too far, and then it would just be a
Yeah.
collapse and like a
Yes.
disaster. So
Yeah.
I've learned to go with the flow of what my energy levels are, how I'm feeling, and really just tune in. What do I want to be doing? Is this going to be okay for me? And all of that. So
Great.
it's a balance between kind of pushing outside your comfort zone and also not pushing too hard at the same
Mm.
time.
Recognizing your parameters of where you
Exactly.
can go, yeah, safely
Exactly.
without
Exactly.
relapsing and ending back in disease, active disease.
Exactly.
That is awesome. So you now help others to find that love in their life, and people come see you to learn all these strategies to get to the point where they have stability and confidence, and they're feeling okay with themselves to be able to do and find love.
Yes, exactly. So I've probably worked with over 400 women now, and been a healer and a
Stunning.
coach for 15 years. And even though I'm still in my process, everyone's in their process and nobody's
Of
perfect.
course.
Um, I am at the point where and have been for a while where I can pass on my wisdom. I can help guide people through this process
Mm.
of it's really about getting to know yourself. I have like a three piece like framework where it's awareness, acceptance, connection. And we kind of go around these pillars within the person themselves and then with interacting with other people. So, how much can we move into more awareness and then accepting yourself more and
Mm.
connecting to yourself more? And now, how can we do this with other people? And, it's been successful. I've had some people get married to the love of their lives and getting emails and saying, I found someone and you helped me do it. And so it's very rewarding work.
Very rewarding, yeah. And, when you love what you do, it's not work. It's something that you're passionate about. It's something that you feel great doing, and you've got the skills to do it. So why not pass them on and let someone else learn the strategies of resilience too?
Exactly. Yeah. And this has been my journey. And now, this is my own personal development journey. And now I'm able to bring it full circle. So can't get any better than that.
Good job. Well done. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to let you go. It's been awesome to have you on the show, Eleanor. Thanks so much for being honest about your story and sharing it with lots of other people, because like you say, it's a lot of chronic illnesses. It's not just irritable bowel syndrome. It's a lot of chronic illnesses people just don't want to necessarily talk about, and then they don't get the help they need, and then that kind of thing. So it's wonderful to be able to share these stories on the show, because it gets the word out that there's so much out there that you can do to self-manage. Because I know from experience, you're not going to get a lot of help from professionals. You get so much, but you don't get all the necessaries that you need. You've got to do it yourself, and you've got to build resilience to do that, because it is an up and down challenge. Exactly. So I'm going to let you go, Eleanor, to enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your romantic evening with your husband this evening, and to relax and reflect on the good work that you do. You're awesome. Well done.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Now you can see all the sun is shining on me now.
Yes, beautiful, nice sunshine coming your way. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. We'll see you again for another show next week. Tune in and learn some great strategies of resilience. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.